So this was the first game that I and Rob played of War Room, the board game designed by Larry Harris and produced by Nightingale Games LLC. And I went through the rules. I skimmed through the rules a couple of times. I even read the rules out at the Grand Canyon to the camera, but I still did not have a good grasp of them. I did not study them studiously. Rob studied them much better, but we still got a lot wrong. We got 5 things wrong with the rules, and I got a couple of major fiasco things wrong with the rules. The convoy raids, we did not do the convoy raids right. You get 3 yellows. If you roll 3 yellows in a convoy raid, the defending country only loses 1 OSR. If you roll 5 reds, they only lose 1 oil. Same for iron. Hotspots. The hotspots, the battles cannot be picked by one of your allied countries unless they are involved in the battle. Air units cannot defend land or hold territory. So if the land unit comes in and all that's left is air units, the territory is ceded to the invader, and aircraft have to fly off to a friendly spot and land. Number 4, fourth thing we got wrong, we're supposed to reveal purchases before placing them. I guess this makes a difference, I'm not sure. Number 5, no trades allowed in the Pacific scenario, which is the scenario we're playing, and that's only allowed in the global game, and the allies in this scenario traded every turn, I think, or most turns. And then you'll see my huge mistakes where I got some movement wrong, and then I got some victory conditions wrong, and it just put me down as the worst commander in the history of warfare. Yeah. All right. It's Steve playing Japan and Rob playing the British, China, and the US. We're doing the Pacific theater, so we put sticky notes across the border to make a border so we don't play into the wrong areas. And it is the beginning of round 1, and we both already did splits. The British did some splits in India, and also a combine in China for the 100th there.
No, they recombined.
Splits.
They split and recombined.
They split and recombined, went back to normal, I guess. And the U.S. didn't do any split. The Japan split the Navy there in I can't find the number.
It's under there. P13.
P13. And everything in the U.S. is as regular setup for Pacific theater. So we're gonna do our moves and come back to you. All right, after the first moves, we've got Japan is attacking the convoy in Western Canada. I hope that's legal. It may not be.
It is. I know it is. I'm pretty
because
sure.
the ships moved and then the aircraft moved. I don't know. That's pretty long range. And we've got a bunch of American troops in P12, and there's an air-to-air battle with carrier fighters to see if they live or die. We've got a battle in P19, naval forces, and the Solomon Islands, of course, they're embattled. Britain is making a move on Japan's oil. He's got troops and ships in the P16 and I-9. We got a British-Japan battle going over there with aircraft from the Navy. And the continent is battle-free. Though Japan did make a bunch of moves, and he wanted about 6 or 7 more moves to make. So that is the situation. We'll see how these battles come out. All right, we're at the end of phase 6 in round 1, and the combat results is that there was a P4 hurt on the British iron. The combat at P12, which is a couple of fighters from Japan and the US, to seeing if these troop transports would survive, and the US won that battle. The battle for P19 is still combative. The Japanese only have a battleship left. The Americans have a carrier and a couple of cruisers. Battle for Solomon Islands went to the US and they got a medal. Japan lost that one. And the battle in I-9 was another decisive Allied victory by the British over the Japanese. The Japanese have 3 stress points, the British have 1 stress point, and the Americans have 0. And there was no combat on the continent. Okay, we're in round 2, and this is what we built. The Americans built all this in the western US, and Japan built all this in Japan. Infantry and artillery, and a couple of artillery in Peiping. The Brits built in India artillery to infantry. Nothing built in Australia. And we've done our moves. And Japan, being at the command of myself, made a huge mistake. Supposed to move the 44th land attacking grouping. Supposed to go over to Alaska. But that was an illegal move because I can't do a sea space and then a land space. I have to go directly from sitting in a sea space on the shore and then land. So that is, at minimum, next turn, 2 turns from now, so it'll be turn 4. And he might not even survive the combat that's taking place with the carrier fighters in the area. Okay, and I got some naval units that's still hanging around in P3 because they are expected to be supporting a landing invasion, but they're just sitting there waiting, not understanding what's going on. Still got the combat in P19. No aircraft involved, it's just a naval battle. Japan was expecting a giant melee there on the shores of Japan because it's so vulnerable, because there is not a single troop to protect it, but the Americans decided not to invade Japan. And end the war early. So they're waiting for the atomic bomb, apparently. Got a big fight in Peiping. Chinese are going nuts. And Japan's oil is going to be depleted after these battles unless Japan wins. There's no shore bombardment.
There's not. No.
And then, see, this was the other key part to my 2-turn victory. Invasion of India, Japan being me, Rob being the British, and I was going to go in with all that aircraft and those land units and overwhelm his small air force and his small land army and take that capital and take Alaska on turn 2 and win the game. Unless he had gone in and took Japan, this is a situation I'd have to look up. But I could have taken the 2 victories in India and Alaska, theoretically, and he could have taken Japan because it's undefended, and we both would have won the game. So we're going to have to look that up.
I think you just keep playing until somebody.
Till we lose one,
Right.
and then the other one wins.
Yeah.
That must be it. Okay, I'll see you later in this round. Okay, after round 2's battle combat, nothing going on over in the Pacific. In the Central Pacific, my troops that are at sea survived the air-to-air combat between the carrier fighters, and Japan was victorious in P-19 in defeating one American ship. No combat took place near the shores of Japan, even though there's a lot of troops there. Britain took New Guinea, won that. Britain also took J-11 Java. No, it didn't take it. That is still under contest. It is contested. He did take Sumatra. And the Chinese doing extremely well because they walked into Burma and took that against the garrison, but lost a man. China sent a body wave of people and took Peiping. Now they can manufacture artillery. And the Japanese have taken India and are going to get some troops and some artillery out of the factory. So it's not as bad as I thought it was. I thought I was going to lose my landing troops. So there's still life to me, but I cannot win except on turn 4 or round 4. So I gotta survive round 3 and still have enough intact to take either Alaska, Hawaii, or Western United States on turn 4, on round 4. Thanks. We'll see ya later in the game. Okay, at the end of round 2, or is that the beginning of round 3, we did the builds?
End of 2.
End of 2, America is building in Western US. Japan is building a bit. Just a couple infantry. And the Japanese and India are building a tank and 3 artilleries and an infantry. And the Brits are building a battleship and an infantry in Australia. And the Chinese have
They just built me.
already built men somehow. Alright, so we're at the round 3 combat movement operations. Got a battle still on Java. We got a battle in Thailand against the garrison. And it's all quiet on the Indian front. And Japan didn't have an extra move, so he could easily take Iran and get 1 oil. He wanted to. But instead, he being me, put half of my Japanese fleet off the coast of Australia and 2 army stacks, and that 65th came from J5 Chekang Guatong and completely abandoned it. And the Chinese have yet to figure out that I'm not there. There's a battle for the Mariana Islands against the garrison force, and the Marshall Islands against the garrison force, and then P3 just north of Midway. Sounds familiar, doesn't it, Japan? You're gonna get wiped out. This time it's not gonna be by luck, it's gonna be by skill or overwhelming force. And my stack of guys that have been sitting out there in the ocean in the whole war, they're under battle again, and hopefully this one Japanese aircraft carrier plane can defeat the 2 and survive once again to present a threat to the Pacific. Okay, so this is near the end of round 3. We've gone through the combat. We're about to do production. But let's look at the results of the combat.
That's it.
We got a big naval battle there north of Midway, and Americans won again.
I put a English.
And he put an English flag on top of his American ship. But the big story of the war, the 44th Infantry Land Army sitting in the middle of the ocean for the entire war, and they are unscathed. Complete vulnerable ducks, and they survive. America took a bunch of islands, or a couple of islands, and got some medals, and gave some stress to Japan. But the home country is well fortified, and there's no navy in sight because they're all down at Australia ready to invade Australia or take back their oil. And the Chinese have been allowed to just run rampant through Southeast Asia. And, but Vietnam is still in Japan hands. We know they don't like China. And India, nobody wants to fight over there. I'll have to edit that out. Manchuria is gone, and J5 is still in Japan hands, but nobody's there watching the store. But we're just one move away from victory for Japan. Can the Allies come in and save Western Australia?
That's crazy.
Okay, correction. Western Australia, even if the Japanese take it, they've already got India, they don't win the game. So this is the second time I've misunderstood the rules. I've got to, as Japan, have to take one, either India or Western Australia, and one of Alaska, Hawaii, or Western US. So this game is nowhere near being over as I thought it was. I thought I had it won. So that's the second time in this game that I thought I was within one move of winning, and yet it continues. Someone does not understand war. Okay, what's wrong with these crazy Brits? Brits bid 3 oil, US bid 1, Japan 0, China 0, and the Brits choose to go last. They had first picked. And they were not considering the blocking or pinning my major forces right off their coast of their only industrial complex. And US bidding 1 oil, they get to go first. But they're so far away from Japanese forces, they really can't do too much on this turn to pin them or do much except to kill my guys right there. So we'll see what happens. Okay, beginning of turn 4. We did the moves of our troops. America sees no threat to Canada, came out into the ocean. America sees no threat to its land, so it's headed west. And they're going to go and attack and kill my stack that have been so brave, sitting out in the ocean doing nothing. Got aircraft, a lot of aircraft coming down here, going to try and help out Australia. That's my surmise as a Japan player, and these are American aircraft. And we got a big battle for Western Australia. Japanese landed. Looks like they got overwhelming force. And America is shot across the South Pacific into the South China Sea. No, it was Britain that did that. Britain shot across there, and they're going to try and make landfall somewhere. Convoy attacks all around here, knocking down Japan's resources. Japan's got his troop and his navy sitting off the shore, going to get some of his oil back. Indians got angry and invaded Burma, and they also took Iran to get that free oil. Easy peasy. Up here in the China, Northern Asia, China's dominating. Japan's on the defensive, and the homeland is stacked and safe for now. What do you think, Rob, playing Americans, British, and China in this point in the war?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think I have comments yet.
All right, no comment. That's the best political answer yet. Well, that's a lot of combat tokens out there
It
today.
is all on the eastern side.
Yeah. You know, the name Pacific means pacified or peaceful. Peaceful, that's what it means, peaceful. So the Eastern Pacific's peaceful. That is not. It's all quiet in the Eastern Pacific.
The guy's finally dead in P2.
Oh yeah. The guys that survived 24 months at sea never got shot at, and now they're gone because the Navy came along and destroyed them. All right, we still have, it's embattled, contested in Eastern Australia. No islands changed hands. Japanese there. Nothing changed hands down here. We got Japanese about the land. Get some oil back. Burma was invaded and successfully conquered. The Chinese took the other remaining near empty lands of Asia, and they are masters of the East Asia continent except for Burma. The subcontinent remains in Japanese hands. And boy, that's just about it. The U.S. only did 5 of its 6 moves. Or was that Britain? One of those two countries did.
Britain did.
Britain did. We got Britain down here doing a lot of convoy attacks, going after Japan's resources. And they don't have much. Okay, I'm sure you wanted to see the stress board here. Morale board, as they say. Alright, Japan, yeah, losing a lot of easy battles. Not gaining much, just a bunch of dead. And China, taking all these easy countries and they're racking up the medals. I mean, you've seen the pictures of those generals with 1,000 medals on their chest. Well, that's how they get them. Round 5. Japan, US, and Britain all bid 1. Random drawing. Japan wins. Wow. Okay, this is the moves on round 5. US crowding the Sea of Japan with its large navy and amphibious assault troops. Japan responded with its limited navy, and we have a big battle there. Battle of Eastern Australia still goes on, but those tanks are going to wipe them out, and those planes are going to wipe out Japan for sure. Battle of the Philippines going on. Got to save those troops. Got these Japanese aircraft that are just flying across the ocean. China's moving troops south. Japan moved into Southeast Asia. Tried some air combat into C3 there, but all the troops left and went where the airplanes flew out of. And Japan invaded, trying to get some of its oil back on Sumatra, I think that is. And Japan only had 6 orders to write, and it is in trouble because one more move on the stress level board and we are going into economic collapse. So the outcome of this will determine the victory. So I'll see at the end of round 5, determine if Japan still fights on or gives up. The aftermath of the round 5 battle. Sea of Japan, America wins. And they got troops ready to land on the home island. They've taken Okinawa. Japan loses Okinawa to the Americans and British. The Japanese are finally kicked out of Australia. And Japan did a resurgence in Southeast Asia,
They're going to do the same
got
thing.
some medals,
Head to Western Australia.
and those guys are going to fly to Western Australia.
Yeah, we gotta
And a battle for Sumatra continues. With just aircraft and some artillery. So Japan is still alive, but what kind of stress levels? Well, we got some stress, but we won some medals because we beat some easy foes. But look at all these dead. I don't know. See if we go into economic collapse or not.
You can piece this in later, but I will say that during turn 5, my consistent thought that I had was the next big naval battle was going to decide the game. And so I wanted to be the victor in that. But I thought it was going to be a naval battle that occurred in turn 6. And I planned on having the English help the Americans trap them somewhere. But you came to P1 and we had it early, so.
No, we did have the decisive battle in round 5.
Exactly. Yeah. I thought it was going to be around 6.
I mean, yeah, the only way. Yeah, and I made the mistake of moving my major aircraft group west instead of north on turn 4.
Was that the big one that ended up in the water on P14?
Yeah, so that, but the whole thing was a mistake from the beginning because I didn't know I thought there was a CC land that you can do with your transport troops.
You mean sea land?
Well, I thought it was CC land because I was C zone out, but
You thought it was sea land.
right, yeah, right.
Yep.
Which, I can see that.
Because that in Axis and Allies, it was CC land. I think you could do. So that threw off my whole quick victory in round 2 because I was surely taking India, and I thought I'd take Alaska, and I'd win the game at the end of round 2. And there was no way you're going to take Japan, even though I had emptied out Japan. I had enough blockers there. So I couldn't take Alaska until at least round 3. And that gives time for America to respond and get forces up there or in the water to block. So that was my first strategic mistake because I didn't know what I was doing. My second mistake was another strategic mistake because for some reason I thought, well, okay, I got India. If I take Eastern Australia, I'll win the game there too. But no, you have to take one of India or Eastern Australia and one of the Western Hemisphere territories of Alaska, Hawaii, and Western U.S. So you take one in the Eastern Hemisphere and you take one in the Western Hemisphere and you win as playing Japan. Okay, so after the debacle in the Pacific, my forces were not aligned to do anything correctly, and I thought, well, I could just quickly run down to Australia, and by the time I got my forces down to Australia, you pointed out my error again in rules, and then my forces were out of position to put the stiff arm on the U.S. So the U.S. started marching across the Pacific, and the Eastern Pacific got really quiet and peaceful, and all the battles was in the Western Pacific and on the Asian continent. And I gave up dealing with China because I thought, well, if I just get a quick victory to India and a quick victory to Alaska, I don't have to worry about fighting Chinese. I just got to move fast into India and not worry about the Chinese. And I gave them all those easy victories which means easy losses, which means a lot on the morale board here, which started moving me down the morale chart into dangerous territory. So, I thought I was going to get a quick victory, so I didn't care about morale. I could go down morale 1, 2 spots and still get my victory. But I was wrong on the rules. So I didn't try to manage my morale. And by the time I could have done anything, it was too late, because now I lost all those resources. I lost my oil, lost Japan's oil down in the Indonesia area. And of course, without that, you can't build high-tech equipment. But I didn't even try to defend that oil with anything extra other than what was down there, because I thought quick victory in Australia. So I didn't defend that. So you easily took that. Had I realized, Australia wasn't going to end the war, then I would have defended my oil for sure, because I know oil is a key in this game. So, big blunders. The people of Japan would hang me, chop my head off, and then set my body on fire. They would say, "Gosh, this guy was like the dumbest commander in the history of warfare." So maybe I'll
say this: I was definitely panicking quite a bit at the end of turn 1 when I saw Japan headed for America, and I saw that India had fallen so quickly, or was going to fall. I could see the writing on the wall, and basically at that point in the game, I turned to a kind of probably an odd point in the Pacific Theater. America was pretty much purely defensive, and I thought, okay, if we can just stifle this attack, then we'll be okay. We can continue on. So that's what America focused on, and then I was focused on having China kind of run rampant and England do the best they could to hold the oil and hold Australia.
Yeah, and another thing for the Australian invasion, I thought I had enough forces going in there. I only had aircraft from the carrier, and you really need to have aircraft, land-based aircraft, and the only way to get them in there in force, large numbers, is if you're taking off from Papua. And you can do a 1-2 into Australia from there, through a sea zone and then onto land and get into the battle. So
You could also do it from the Solomon Islands here, but I
Yeah,
conquered that pretty early.
yeah, and those are Solomons start off in battle.
Oh, that's right. And I
So-
supported with some aircraft.
Yeah, and I never paid attention to New Guinea Island, because in the actual war, nothing much happened there as far as I know. I mean, neither side moved a great deal on the other side. There was a Port Moresby invasion plan, but that got thwarted because of some reason I can't quite remember. So I didn't even think about doing a southward move from New Guinea into Papua, and then that sets up the invasion of Australia. So in future games, I'm going to either do that, or I'm going to watch for my opponent to do that, because I know that's the key to Australia.
One other key I was thinking about in this game, especially around turn 3 and 4, is my focus was purely on giving Japan stress. I was like, okay, let's take out his navy. Let's just conquer as many territories as we can that are of strategic value. Don't worry about taking Japan. Don't even necessarily worry about holding what you've won. Just the focus is giving you stress. That was the focus.
And that was the perfect plan when Japan just gives China free reign over Asia, and taking those little islands of Japan that doesn't really matter too much out in the Pacific, which I thought didn't matter that much, those added up too with stress. So I was getting it from the China, stress, losing territories, and losing territories to the U.S. later, in the later rounds 4 and 5, and those stacked up. And I came within one death of having to go into economic collapse at the end of round 5. So it was just one guy that didn't die in my whole military, and he saved the whole country from going into economic collapse. But I see the writings on the wall, and because of the early mistakes, there's just no way to come back without oil.
America's just on a roll now. Now that it's tied 6 moves to 6 moves, they're just gonna steamroll in. And by the time you've recovered your oil, which I think you will eventually, potentially, they're gonna be all over you in Japan.
Yeah, it would be the only way to play that is to keep the oil countries and build aircraft in Japan. And just aircraft, and just fight the Navy before it can land its troops. That's the only way to fight that. Because Japan doesn't have enough to rebuild a whole Navy that would compare to the U.S.
Well, the thing I was thinking,
and Britain.
if I were you, if you were to try to rebuild the Navy, I would build it out of India. And then just kind of refocus back around.
Yeah, but even it takes 3 turns to get Japan from India.
Oh yeah, you won't be getting there anytime soon.
Yeah.
You can build it in a safe harbor, is what I'm getting at.
And it's 1, 2, 3. You can get from the eastern or western U.S. to Japan, Sea of Japan, in 2 turns. So there's a 2-turn to 3-turn advantage right there if you try to manufacture out of India.
But in 2 turns, maybe even 1 turn, I would be targeting what Navy you have remaining big time with the UK Navy and the airplanes.
Yeah, and even with Britain just producing 1 ship a turn.
It's at least equal to probably what you would get.
Oh yeah. So even
You're still a ways away from taking my oil back.
yeah, I'm 2 turns away.
2 turns away, and then 4 turns away from using it.
Yeah, and I'd have to shift. I'd have to kick out the current Navy that's down there, and I'd have to use air power for that. So I got to get these guys off of Japan. So I don't know if I could do that without also stopping the U.S. from invading successfully. Yeah, so there's just at this point the squeeze is too much. I don't have enough forces, and they're spread out too far.
And then you have the extra thing to think about is stress, right? Like you can't even lose guys without taking land. You can't even afford to fight naval battles at this point.
I know that's one of the things I wrote down here is avoid naval battles because it causes too much stress level.
And you don't get medals.
Yeah. And
So right now, as Japan, yeah, your only option would be to take over China, get your stress lowered.
yeah,
But
that's
that doesn't help you get the oil. So eventually,
right.
America would.
Yeah, I gotta retake all of Asia and get a bunch of metals and get the oil, but still, America's just gonna keep sending stuff over. And let's see, what was it? Get 1 tank, 1 armor for the India invasion. That would have given me force advantage in that particular situation.
I wonder if there are very many games where the UK hits the oil so early and just abandons India like that. I felt like I kind of blundered on that regard. Because in this theater, that counts as 3 medals. At least we think so. And
India?
yeah.
Is it?
Well, we treated it like a capital.
Oh, yeah.
So it was 3 medals. But you end up losing Iran. And then at that point, I had no force on that half of the board. And your guys were up against the wall, which is great in this game, I think. Because there's only one way to go. East. Coming out of India.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about people behind you or anything.
Yeah. You're right.
What other goodies do you have written down? Also, is that piece of pizza still? Did you eat that piece of pizza?
I thought you just. Oh, it's in the fridge.
Okay. You can edit this part out.
Yeah. The pizza war.
Is that okay if I eat it?
Of course.
Okay.
beginning of turn 4, make political decisions, not warfare decisions, but it was too late because I was getting hurt so much on the stress
What do you mean?
round
What do you
table.
mean by okay?
Well, political decisions is get cheap victories so I can have medals to buy down stress for all the people that die under my command. So that's in order to appease my constituents in my country. And whenever you do that, that's a political decision, not trying to get a victory at a strategic point, and giving up lots and lots of land territories and getting lots of stress from that. So I was going after big, major battles, and I let the Allies win all the little tiny battles. But my whole strategy was wrong because I didn't understand the rules.
I'll say that was my strategy as England, and you may have noticed that, is that I was just walking around the ocean with boats with like one guy trying to find a spot that I could pick off for a medal. And that was kind of England's strategy.
Yeah.
And plus, we didn't have that many units left. There were turns where I only made 5 moves as England.
Yeah,
I didn't
so-
even have 6 units on the board that could move, so.
Yeah, I saw that where you didn't use up your full. That when I moved down to stress level to reduce the number of orders I could write down to 6 from 9, that made a big difference. So you never want to, if you're gonna win this game, never get to that level.
Yeah, for you, the yellow one didn't really matter. You weren't using the
Yeah,
woods or the.
we're an island nation, and I'd given up my whole rail system voluntarily.
And the Navy battles were occurring over in America at that time.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. So I never.
you never had
I don't think I ever had a
Not even-
battle outside of my own port. No, never had a naval battle outside my own port. Alright, so yeah. So I did have the question of if you're pinning the Navy that has troop transports with it, are the troop transports also pinned or are they just scoot away?
What do you mean?
Yeah, I've got a naval combat ships and troops with them, and then you come along and pin my ships, because those troop transports really do slip away, or are they pinned too? I'm not sure.
You have to be able to match their pinning force, and then they can slip away. They can also slip away to a friendly nation, even if they are pinned.
To a friendly nation or a
A friendly
friendly
territory, friendly
or
country.
region?
Yeah, land-based,
What about sea-based?
no, because that's not considered controlled by anybody.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't go into a friendly, I went to a hostile land.
Right.
But you didn't pin me.
No, and I can't. Right
Yeah,
now.
but if you could have I have still made the landing?
No, because it's not friendly.
Okay, so I would have been unable to actually make a landing, an amphibious landing. All right, I think that's about it.
The other question we had was, can you move through a zone that has bad guys in it? Remember there was at one point where you were trying to move to an area that had no bad guys in it, but to get there you had to walk through me.
Troop transport?
Remember you were trying to transport through my Navy?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can't do that.
No. And I wonder if the same thing applies, like if you had had battleships, would they have gotten pinned? I guess they would have, yeah. I'm pretty sure that's in the rules.
Of course,
Yeah, that is exactly.
I would have canceled the order, right?
Well, that's what you ended up doing,
Yeah.
because they would have gotten pinned.